An array of changes comes for the next season, one that's supposed to hit off from the 5th of March. While everyone is excited to see the floor edges being raised and the technical regulations being tweaked, the FIA seems to have rolled the ball a bit too early with the regulations and has possibly submitted itself under the dominance of Red Bull for the next 3 seasons. What are the new changes that we'll see in 2023? Why are the new regulations not as good as everybody thinks? And what does this essentially mean for the sport? This video has all the answers, so make sure you don't go anywhere. If there is one thing that we learned from 2022, it's that it's great to have a certain bald guy on your team named Adrian Newey. The mastermind behind the RB18 has managed to produce one of the greatest cars to ever exit production from Milton Keynes. And it was mostly thanks to the fact that he was around Formula One when ground effect cars were first introduced in the 1970s. Later on, the effect was banned in the 80s due to the safety hazards it presented. But F1 has made a lot of improvements in this sector, which is why 2022 saw the implementation of this effect yet again. However, 2022 is behind us, and while Mercedes and Ferrari won't have a hard time forgetting it, there are certain aspects of it that we need to pinpoint and build upon, such as the aerodynamic phenomenon of porpoising. It caught everyone off guard, and it was so evident that the FIA had to intervene and change the rules for the remainder of the 2022 season, from Baku onwards, and for the next season as well. Why is this such huge news anyway? Well, the tweaks that they've made for 2023, mostly to tackle the porpoising, are unlikely to be good enough, but we'll get to that later in this video. Let's see what the new changes are. One of the biggest facilitators for the porpoising phenomenon was the ride height, and the lower the car was to the ground, the more frequent the bouncing happened. The weight of the car has also contributed to this phenomenon, so raising the floor edges by 10 mm and the side sections by 15 mm should have been sufficient to prevent it from occurring. This was the solution in 2022 as well, but if this was done, then the car in question would have lost a huge amount of downforce and gained a large amount of drag. Mercedes has been one of the loudest teams in the paddock when it comes to changing the rules for next season, something that's supposed to be covered on the newest season of Drive to Survive on Netflix, as the team bosses had a harsh argument in Canada during the Montreal GP. And when they succeeded in this manner, nobody could have argued that they would likely be in the same situation as the previous season. But that seems to be the case, as Nicholas Tombasis, the director of single-seater at the FIA, spoke about this matter further, saying that only time will tell whether the regulations are going to be good enough to tackle the porpoising issue or not. But the fact that the FIA was so certain, and now they have doubts about it, only goes to show that the tests regarding this matter haven't been quite positive, and with the results that the governing body hoped for. Just what Ben Sulayem needed prior to the beginning of the 2023 season. The new changes for the 2023 season will make the car slower by 0.4 of a second, depending on the circuit it races on. But apart from the raised edges and the increased ride height, the cars are going to have stiffer floors to combat the flexing phenomenon. This was a major issue for the cars the previous season, and Mercedes believed that the allowed flexing of 8 mm had been completely overturned by Red Bull and Ferrari. In order to prevent that, the lateral edge will be able to flex a maximum of 5 mm compared to 8 mm in 2022. How will this happen? With thicker floors, of course. What does this mean for the F1 cars? They will have more material in the floor, which would eventually make it thicker, and that means that the car will weigh more. However, teams like Red Bull and Ferrari have reportedly found a solution for this matter, as they have managed to build a thicker but lighter floor for the 2023 car. By doing so, these teams have defied the laws of physics, but yet again, when genius minds come together to work, wonders can happen. The floor will also witness changes in the flex control of the skid blocks, which were vividly seen throughout Zhu's crash in Silverstone last year. From 2023 on, the car will have 4 verification points, excluding the front area, where the T-tray once was, which would only go to make the floor even stiffer. The FIA wants to make the challenge of building a lighter car even more anticipated, as they have lowered the weight limit to 796 kilograms, which is 2 kilograms less compared to 2022. Development work over the last year means that there won't be as many problems with excess weight for the teams as there were last season, which ultimately led the FIA to raise the minimum weight to 798 kilograms. But the power unit weight will increase by 1 kilogram, which would result in a total of 151 kilos. This increase is dictated by the fact that the total weight of the drive units will also include components that were previously part of the chassis group. Here comes the issue that has presented itself throughout the 2022 season as well, which is the reliability of the engines. The teams will be allowed to use 3 power units over the span of the 23 Grand Prix season, which will yet again see lots of penalties being applied to the grid once the cars pick up the 4th engine. In 2022, we saw the implementation of rear wings that can be labeled controversial, at least from teams like Aston Martin and Mercedes. While these teams thought that they were in the clear, the FIA has said loud and clear that the rear wing designed by Aston Martin and Mercedes is going to be illegal for the 2023 season, especially for tracks where a lot of downforce is needed. What the FIA has done regarding the safety of the sport is something worth applauding, as they have built more resistant roll hoops. This has been facilitated by Zhu's crash in Silverstone, which saw his car turn over and roll upside down all the way to the barriers. This isn't supposed to happen in 2023 if, God forbid, a similar crash is to happen. The roll hoops are going to be not only more resistant, but also more rounded, which won't allow the car to turn upside down under crashes like the one in Silverstone. We must not forget the financial changes, ones that will see the budget cap lowered by an additional $5 million to $137.4 million for the upcoming season. Teams like Red Bull are likely to not like this change at all, but they have to comply with it. Otherwise, the penalty won't be a slap on the wrist like it was regarding the 2021 season outcome. The qualifying format has also changed a bit, and although it will remain functionally identical, the drivers will only be permitted to run hard tires in Q1, with medium tires being mandatory in Q2. Q3 is the only session where drivers will be allowed to use the soft tire, as the system is designed to help make F1's use of its tire compounds over a weekend less wasteful and more sustainable. And keep in mind that we have so many changes in the drivers' lineup as well. Drivers like Ricciardo, Vettel, Mick Schumacher, and Nicholas Latifi won't be present on the grid anymore, at least for 2023, while drivers like Nick De Vries and Logan Sargent will enter their first full-time driving job. Pierre Gasly will have a lot of interesting moments with Esteban Ocon, his old nemesis, while Alonso will likely bite his tongue whenever Stroll annoys him because he's now driving for the team that his father owns. The team's leaders have also changed dramatically, with Andreas Seidel leaving to become CEO of Sauber and Stella taking his place. On the other hand, Ferrari decided that enough is enough with Binotto, and they brought in Leclerc's old friend from Alfa Romeo, Frederic Vasseur. While many expected Leclerc to be the designated #1 driver in Ferrari, Vasseur's actions have proven everyone wrong, and both drivers will be given equal opportunities to prove themselves to the world. Lots of interesting stuff is headed our way, and we're more than happy to witness it all at the same time. What we're also very happy to witness is the pre-test in Bahrain, and the first lights out and away we go on the 5th of March. Hoping to see yet another interesting overtaking action between Verstappen and Leclerc. With that being said, who do you think is going to win the championship? Will Red Bull dominate the season once again, or will Ferrari finally figure out what the right tires are to put on? Also, let us know in the comments below what you think about the new regulations for the 2023 season.